Okay, good evening, everyone, and welcome back to the We Are Marshall podcast. My name is Stephen Marshall, and this is Bill McIntyre. We Are Marshall. Okay, basically, we are going to get into some subjects today. I just want to reiterate to hit like, share, and subscribe to this podcast. Also, we are sponsored by a large dating site, MateConnector.com. Mosey on over to www.mateconnector.com, sign up, and see what this inexpensive dating website can do for you in your dating life. Okay, the first topic that Bill and I are going to get into today in our normal discussions are Biden corruption and the media handling of this corruption. Okay? Rep. Comer and others reported evidence of monies received from foreign governments and businesses for what service? The Bidens have no business. The only business they're involved in is politics. So the only thing they could be making money for is selling their pay for play, their legislation for money. They're getting bribed, it seems like. I am not stating this definitively. It is alleged out there that this is what's going on, but they did release some information that shows money's being transferred to 15 plus shell LLCs created to receive money. Most media is playing it as an attack on the Bidens. So let's be honest. If this were Trump, it would be the biggest news ever. People wouldn't be saying this is speculation or circumstantial evidence or whatnot. They would be all over it like they were with the collusion, the PP tape, and all these other things. So we need to just be honest. They are being hypocritical. So the media hypocrisy is a joke, and the media perpetually interferes with elections by slanting the news to their bias. So if they're sitting here and saying it's an attack on Biden, just look at the headline. Think about it. Do you think the news would say, Bill, that this is an attack on Trump?
No, of course not.
Right. They would basically be saying, to throw the book at him. Let's go at him.
Yeah, they were idling at impeachment. Come on, there's no way that they wouldn't be all over that. This story is mind-boggling, and by all means, finish your introduction to the subject.
Well, all I'm getting into for this is look at the way the media is doing it. Headlines you see, the attack of the Bidens. This is circumstantial evidence. You've even had a report come out, Bill, which blows my mind, that one of the papers said the report comes out on the Bidens, no evidence at all.
Right.
Isn't that crazy?
Well, I have a lot of thoughts on this subject, as you can probably imagine.
Go right for it.
Oh, well, okay. Well, where do I start? First of all, yes. If this was Trump and they looked into Ivanka and Donald and Eric and everything right from the get-go, trying to find something, and their base was ready to gobble up anything, so they were just trying to throw everything their way. But this, I got to start. I sat down with a guy not too long ago, and he actually looked me straight in the face, and he said that he doesn't think the media spins stories. And I just looked at him. I said, one of the squint deals. I'm like, you're a smart guy. How can you possibly say that? I said, you could take one story where Donald Trump was walking along the waterside and the guy was drowning and Trump climbed onto a tree and pulled him out, and somebody would say, oh, Donald Trump ruins guys' day at beach. I mean, it was ridiculous how they would spin stories. And, Walter Cronkite may have been the last guy who actually told you what happened. So the spin is mind-boggling about this. So you hit it right in the head. This is influence peddling, nothing less, okay? And there's so many layers to this. And Comer did a terrible job. He really failed. This is not just CNN's take. I think it's true. He really failed in actually draw a connection to the Bidens when they're actually there. Okay, now, Hunter has been accused of being on the payroll of energy companies in Ukraine, China, one Kazakhstan was run by a despot, like an absolute horrible guy that we would never have any business doing business with as Americans. He pocketed millions of dollars. There's no way that wasn't shared with Dad. And then Biden has consistently said that he never did business with anybody with Hunter in the White House. And then they revealed the guest logs of the people visiting the White House when he was Obama's vice president, and it clearly showed some of the people named in the upcoming indictment as people who were members of these corporations, these shell corporations. What'd you say? There were 12 different companies, something like that?
15 or more.
More, probably like 42. So this is just plain and simple. But let's be honest here. Partisan politics is not unique to the Democrats. I don't think Republicans do it as badly. I think that, we talked about this last week. We talked about the fact that, dignity has no place in politics these days. But I mean, this whole thing, the evidence is there that tremendous amounts of retirement funds were made on both parties to pocket for the Bidens to pocket it. Now that is, to the average American, that should be a disgusting thing to know that potential decisions that might affect average Americans were made in the interest of simply lining somebody's pocket. I mean, the potential damage of some of these decisions that were made regarding energy or whatever, that affects people. And to think it's only done just so someone can really pad their pockets is really mind-boggling. But here's the biggest story. They want to indict Hunter now. So it went from no story here, no, look, move on, nothing to see here, police tape, to now let's indict Hunter on minor charges. He lied on a gun application. He stated that he'd never been a drug user. Correct. When actually he had been documented as having a treatment for drugs. Okay. That's a felony. All right. And he was also accused of tax fraud. And this is the biggest issue. There's nothing inherently illegal about taking money from foreign corporations, but you have to pay taxes on it. There was no taxes paid on any of this. It's unethical, as a word we like to bounce around a lot. Exactly. Mostly on the recipient, I've noticed, but another time I'll talk about that. But
we'll definitely get into that.
There's nothing inherently illegal about being an influence peddling scumbag son of a president. Okay, and I'm being nice, but the fact is that what they want to do is they want to get him indicted on a couple of nothing to see here charges, so they can get a plea deal and they can seal the entire thing and not make it worse. So it's better politically for Joe to say, yeah, okay, he is guilty. I'm sorry, I didn't know about this, but hide the bigger picture, which is on the laptop. Correct. Which, Pelia, why don't you tell us a little bit about the laptop? I know you have a little knowledge of this one.
Well, the laptop has all kinds of emails. You got Bob Alinsky in there corroborating some of the emails, saying that that 10% for the big guy. And basically, what they're saying is they've got all this money linked to a number of people in his family. And then we can just say this one phrase. Okay, it's gone to about 8 people in his family to 10 or something like that. And Joe didn't get anything. Come on. I mean, what do you expect this to be? But I think it's funny. You pointed out the application. I just want to throw some irony out here. The gun application. Who are the proponents for gun reform?
Democrats exclusively.
Yeah. One of their people, the son of the president, the leader of the Democrats, fudged an application for a weapon. Think of the irony of that.
Oh no, it's okay that they're protected by men with guns. And they also have walls around their houses. They hated walls an awful lot. If I remember 2016.
Oh, so funny.
I mean, their bodyguards have guns, and all the people in Chicago that keep their agenda going seem to have a lot of guns. So I mean, this is it's ironic. It's a headline that writes itself.
Yeah, it's just funny to me because they'll say, let's put all these stopgaps in. Here's a stopgap, and there's the son of the president got by the stopgap. But anyway,
how the media is treating this, Steve, and actually, to go back to the original, point of the question is, they're downplaying it to the point of denial. It's embarrassing that legitimate quotation for legitimate news sources don't see an actual story for what it is. You have a person I mean, if he was the son of a plumber, he wouldn't have this kind of influence. It's because he's the son of Joe Biden. He has this kind of influence.
Yeah. But
And
the
Joe,
investigation, as you know, isn't really on Hunter. It's on Joe Biden. All
it
this
is.
stuff they're looking at, yeah.
And that's where they failed to bring up the guest logs of the White House, the visitor logs. The Comer did not make a necessary connection to the family. So he's got the people talking, and there will be something happening soon. And I think an indictment is definitely pending, but I think it's going to be on jaywalking.
I'm not going to hold my breath with the DOJ doing anything, but I think it's good whenever there's seemingly corruption that it's exposed. I don't care if it's a Republican, an independent, or a Democrat. If they are being corrupt, let's expose it. But that, let's move on to the next subject we got here today, something you brought up. I just want to reiterate, this is the We Are Marshall podcast. My name's Stephen Marshall. This is Bill McIntyre. Hit that like, share, and subscribe so we can continue to grow more content for you. And go check out our big sponsor, MateConnector.com. The next subject that I look into a little bit here, Bill, and this is something we've been talking about, and I've been talking to many people for a while, is this. I don't know if I'll pronounce her name correctly, so forgive me if I don't, audience, is Haiba Diouf. Okay, she's a French sprinter that's banned from Olympic competition. Why is she or he or whatever you want to call them? I'm not a big pronoun guy, okay? I call it how I see it, but we'll go.
No, living life as a woman. She wants to be called she. Yep.
Oh, whatever. But she's okay. Yep. She's living her life as a woman. He's living his life as a woman. How about we'll say that? Yep. He is living as a woman. Okay. And they just banned transgender athletes from competing with women in the Olympics. Okay. What they say is that levels of testosterone are what they're going to gauge things after or before puberty to do this. But let's be honest. How many men, even at our age, have an issue called low T? Many. It is rampant among people our age. And I'll be honest with you, I'll race this guy right now. And I'm 53 years old, okay? They will not beat me right now, and that's an Olympic sprint, but they will beat women, and that's wrong. That's why I brought up levels of testosterone are not good enough as a gauge. Men have low T, but could still beat women. So why are we doing this? I thought the whole thing for years was we were fighting for women's rights, and now all of a sudden a woman's getting pushed aside for a transgender. But this is a subject you wanted to bring up, so let me hear what you have to say on this one.
First of all, I saved my eggshells from breakfast today because I'm about to walk on them. Okay.
Okay.
This is one of those issues that I'm not afraid to say my opinion on it, but the fact is that it's always going to come across as insensitive to somebody. So
it won't. So let's go this way, Bill. Let's preempt this thing, okay? You and I don't care if someone's gay, black, white, Asian, lesbian, transgender, anything. We don't care.
We don't.
Live your life and enjoy it. But when it's thrown in our face and you're forcing us to change definitions of what we know, then this is where you're going to get some input from us. But go ahead, Bill.
Okay. I brought this topic up to you for potential for discussion today because of the reaction that she had to not being allowed to participate. But of course, I do want to talk about, this is where the eggshells come in, the larger issue of a man strapping on a onesie and tucking his pee-pee behind him, and all of a sudden now he's a woman and he's kicking ass in all the sports.
Right.
What the Olympics were going to be forced to do this. Okay, so the World Athletic Association, they drilled down farther on the testosterone issue, and they actually have a standard now that if you experience puberty as a particular gender, that is the gender that you identify as. So this athlete had a male puberty. So this is the reason that the ban happened. Now, you and I would have a much more simple approach to this. We would just say, no, you can't have a dick and play against women. I'm sorry, but pardon my language, but it isn't fair. And you said it right from the beginning. This is about fairness to women. So if there's a woman out there who's offended by what I'm saying, I truly don't know what I can say to begin to even understand that, because women have every need every amount of kudos for establishing their own sports and their own standards of athleticism. And with the obvious exception of sports like football, and there are some great female football players, when it comes to issues of natural strength and all that, it's a biological matter. It isn't a sociological matter. It isn't a gender matter. It's a real thing.
Absolutely.
So having said that, I am all for fairness. If you want to ask me about one of the things I care about most in the world, I care about fairness. I want life to be an even playing field. No gifts, nothing's handed to you. Everybody has the same opportunity and go for it. So I have a huge problem, massive problem with men identifying as female and then going and kicking the ass of a person who trained her entire life to be the best at her sport. Now, I'm sorry, Leah Thomas has to come to example to mind as the big example. Well, ranked 438th in the world in swimming, not even on the radar. All of a sudden, number one, and number two is over there getting a participation trophy because she was almost as good as a guy wearing a one-piece swimming suit. It's awful. So the woman now, Haida, her reaction was, the only safeguard the transgender women have is their right to live as they wish, and we are being refused that. We are being, what was the word she used?
Marginalized.
Yeah, well, no, hounded.
Hounded and marginalized.
And marginalized. Well, okay, I'm sorry, but no, you are not being told you can't live the life you want to live. I don't care what you do. You say the same thing. Live your life as a woman. Live your life as an eggplant. I don't care. I want you to have that happiness. I have a gay daughter. One of my best friends has a daughter who is identifying as a guy and wants to have the surgery. Live and let live. Do what you want. Be happy. But don't say that because of this fair ruling that you're not allowed to live your life as you want. This is one particular thing. Now, it's a big thing. It's her life, unfortunately, because she's an athlete. But to throw it out there and say that everything that they stand for is being marginalized, no, it's not. So that's
I agree.
Yeah.
What's being marginalized, honestly, and being attacked is women's rights.
Yes.
Okay, and I will fight for fairness too. I'm with you. I'm for, honestly, if this person wants to run, they have every right to run, but there needs to be another third section, a transgender section for these people to run in the Olympics. I'm all for that. Go for it. But do not take away from the women. Or if you don't want your own section, then go race against the men. And if you can't beat them, oh, well, unfortunately, that's the way it is.
Well, they can't beat them. That's why they can't beat them.
Well, we know that.
They'd rather be number one, okay.
Just like Leah Thompson, like you said. The Leah Thompson one was a perfect example. And that girl that came in second, I wish I knew her name off the top of my head, but she's
on the lecture circuit right now.
She is, and I think it's good that she's out there fighting for women's rights. Good for her. Okay, so we'll move on to the next thing on this. This is the We Are Marshall podcast. Hit like, share, and subscribe. My name's Stephen Marshall. This is Bill McIntyre. Go to our big sponsor, MateConnector.com at www.mateconnector.com. It's a large, inexpensive dating website. Sign in, sign up, and see what it can do for you. Now, this next one, we'll probably have a good time with this one. Stores closing in big cities, okay? Stores are closing in big cities due to crime rates. The media wants to put this as remote work is why it's closing, lack of employees, and other such variables. I cannot discount these variables, but I believe they do not affect city stores in the number that they're trying to state. Most of the populace is in the city. So if most of the populace is in the city, you're not going to have a problem finding employees. You're not going to have problems with many of these variables they're stating. Okay, so therefore, many of these variables they're stating in the media are false. They have lots of people to choose from, and the stores state it is due to crime also, not just the numbers. The media, once again, not wanting to make crime the big issue to protect a Democrat president. It's getting quite sickening and ridiculous. Okay, myself personally, I am really getting fed up with the media. I am a true believer in the free press, freedom of the press. I want to hear what's going on out there, and you can give me your opinion. I'm fine with that too, but make sure you state a story for what it is, okay? Crime is up in this country ridiculously. Stores are closing because they're sick of people just walking in, stuffing stuff in their bags and walking out. They've had to lock up a number of items so people could get them. And many people are complaining because it takes a long time to get those items because they have to get an employee and then go over and unlock it. Well, what's a store supposed to do? Now there was just a shooting. I believe it was at like a Walgreens or something. A security guard ended up shooting and killing someone that was robbing. Okay, I don't believe you should shoot and kill, but that person was paid to protect that store. So what are they supposed to do? What did they do before the shooting? Basically, what I'm getting at with this is there is real crime going on in this country. It is really high in numbers, and the media is downplaying it because most of these cities that we're talking about are run by Democrats. There's a Democrat mayor, there's a Democrat DA, and there's usually a Democrat chief of police. And if that's the case that's going on, they're being very lenient on these people. There's no bail. They're not putting them in jail for things. They're letting them out on the street. You just look at Jordan Neely, 44 arrests, out on a warrant after hitting a 67-year-old woman, and he also was in trouble for trying to kidnap a 7-year-old kid. And he unfortunately died on a subway because a Marine intervened to protect the people around him, and that happened. These are the things that are transpiring out there. It's terrible, but what are we going to do, Bill? What are we going to do?
I don't need to add a lot to that. You really brilliantly covered that, but I will. Most of what I'm going to say is corroborating everything you said, but the Neely story, this you introed this topic about stores and big cities closing, but it is really more about read between the lines. CNN listed crime fifth in the overall list of reasons why stores are closing, and we've all seen the videos, the ones that the media allows us to see, of people just walking in mass hordes into stores, just taking everything they want, and the stores help us do anything about it. One store video of a security guard in a liquor store just standing by as three or four guys just took every bottle they could fit in their bags and walked out. And he said, "Not only am I not gonna die over this, some bottles of booze," he says, "but it's just not worth it." So basically, security, like at the airport, it's an illusion. Okay. So having said that, yes, crime is the reason. There are more instances than we see about stores being ravaged. People have no problem with getting caught stealing. The one particularly heartbreaking examples for me is that during a lot of the racial riots like Michael Brown and all that, where entire cities were engulfed in the racial riots, was the stores that were being trashed by its own residents, cannibalizing their own community. And I'm not saying they, I'm not saying there, I'm not implying anything, but the people who live in that community had no sense of community, and they had no problem destroying the businesses of people that were just like them. They knew most of the people that did this. So add into this scenario the larger companies. You said it. If a state has one major city and 5 million people in it, 3 million of those people live in that city. That's where everybody is. All the people who are able to work a retail job, they live in those cities. Now there is a sub story there about people not wanting to work, but we don't not going to get into that. It is about crime, okay? Neely was indicted today, was charged without even the formality of a grand jury.
Not Neely, Penny was. Penny is the kid.
Penny, excuse me. Penny was charged by Bragg today without even the benefit of a grand jury. There's a process he completely skipped over. He wasn't going to let the grand jury derail his agenda. Okay.
I think they're gonna go to the grand jury, though. Just so you know, I'm not positive on that, but
Right.
I do believe they are.
Well, that's as of last look, that's where it was at. There was a huge issue in crime in this country. People don't feel safe. People don't feel safe shopping. They don't feel safe walking down the street. They don't feel safe going to a restaurant. You can't even be at a stoplight without worrying about somebody coming up to the window and possibly taking your car. I mean, it's a real issue. I think that law and order is going to come down and be the biggest issue of this coming election. I think even people who don't want to admit that these activist DAs and their turnstile arrest policies and all that are making it impossible for them to even live in la la land, because they have to admit that the government is failing, and whoever's behind this slate of activist DAs, we know who's behind it. His last name is Soros. I live in New Hampshire. I live in a very small town. I tell you, I'm glad I do. It's crazy out there. I have a permit to carry, and I still don't want to leave the house.
But you did have 2 points that I want to re-emphasize that you said that were very good, that I didn't do, that were nice. Okay, now pulling out, like you're saying, not safe. Okay, they list those variables that I said, and yes, they put crime as number 5.
Yeah.
So ridiculous. But let's look at it for what it really is. All right, maybe they're not getting employees, but maybe them employees don't want to go work in retail because they know people are coming in and stealing things and they could lose their life. Maybe they're afraid, like you're saying. Right there, there's another thing. So I mean, it's just ridiculous. I wish they'd just be honest. And this is where I get YouTube takes people's videos down for just mentioning something. Yet the news, our network news, can go on there and lie and manipulate elections and all kinds of things all the time, and no one does anything about it. It just blows my mind. But
no, it continues to annoy me too, because we consider that you always hear people talk about the sanctity of the free press. They're free to say whatever they want, is what they're free, and they have and on top of that, they have no accountability.
None whatsoever. That's a big part of the problem, and that's where we need to do better as a society. And I think that this is the good thing. Podcasting and streaming's coming out, and I think you're going to see an eradication of the old school news the way it was.
Listen, Steve, we're the 5% of people who actually look at a story and say, "Is that really how it went down?" Well, it's the other 95. The other 95 that are, exactly.
We want to
keep up the good work.
Something exactly. So let's just go on to the next subject that you wanted to talk about. Hit like, share, and subscribe to the We Are Marshall podcast. We're sponsored by MateConnector.com. Go check it out. It's an inexpensive dating website. All the frills and features that you get with the big players, just for a much more inexpensive price. The next subject is something that's in the news all the time. I know you probably have a lot to say on this, so I'll briefly say what I have. Go with you, and then we'll see what I can say.
Brother, it's your podcast. Don't have to be brief. Talk, man. I want to hear what you think about this too.
I want some subjects from you, and I'll reiterate off what you do, so don't worry. But to me, as far as I'm concerned with the war in Ukraine, after looking at it, number one, we should be auditing this war so vigorously, it's ridiculous, because Joe Biden has ties to Ukraine, and I don't like it. And he just was given a $100 billion account to send whatever weapons over there he wants, without any accounting or auditing whatsoever. That is scary and wrong. Okay, I believe it's a waste of our money and weaponry. It could be a cash grab for our government employees with ties to their families or their interests. So, not a big fan of the war in Ukraine. I don't see what our big interest is there. I don't want anybody to die. I wish we could save everybody and find a way that these wars don't transpire. But if you want to look at this war in reality, Bill, this war is our fault. Okay? We continue to push for Ukraine to join NATO. All right, if Russia was pushing to have Canada or Mexico join some group of people that are against us, you think we'd let that happen? No, it's the same thing. Ukraine's right next to Russia, like Mexico and the Canada are to us. And if they were doing the same thing we are over there here, we'd fight back too. Go right ahead on what you have to say there.
Okay. I'm gonna tell you first of all that I think that the Ukraine war is not in the news. It's conspicuously not in the news. We are on day 438 of the invasion of Ukraine, and I don't think people are talking about it enough. And it's a sad thing because a lot of innocent people are dying in large numbers, large numbers. Um, But let me sidetrack from my notes here. Yes, Ukraine, it is 100% our fault, not just ours, but all supposedly peace loving nations to lean so heavily on Ukraine. But here's why we did that. Did you know that Ukraine is the one of the number one leading exporters of almost every vital major metal,
Yeah.
mercury? It's staggering. I don't have the list in front of me. I apologize, but
They're a
the,
humongous grain exporter too.
yeah. But besides that, the precious metals that country is rich. I'm not talking like have a decent supply. No, they are like first or third in the entire world in some categories. Russia wants Ukraine for the resources. They want the oil. They want the natural gas. They want the cadmium. They want the mercury. They want everything that Ukraine has to offer. And unfortunately, Russia is in an expansionist mode right now where they just want to restore the former Soviet Union. Ukraine's a natural step. Um, this is from government weakness also. You notice that Putin, he dipped his toe in the water in 2015, and that didn't happen again until 2020 because Trump has said, you're not going to touch the. All of a sudden, the Crimea is annexed. We're playing the Chamberlain game, and we're placating the guy and telling Ukraine to deal with it. But the biggest stories that come out of Ukraine to me are how it's been exposed how bad the Russian military really is. Okay, yeah, they have a substantial, formidable nuclear arsenal, no question. They have more battleships than we do. The MiG fighter is comparable to anything that we have as far as air weapons, drones, the works. They're formidable, but their ground troops are woefully unprepared, unmotivated, and frankly, they just don't care. You've had people who are just dropping their weapons in the mud and walking back to Russia. All right. 3 years, Russia's population has dropped by 2 million people. People are fleeing the country to not serve in an unpopular. It's their Vietnam, is what it is. Okay, it's Russia's Vietnam. So, having said that about Ukraine, the big news of the day right now is the power plant in Zaporizhzhia, if I'm pronouncing that correct. And it's not a danger because it's about to explode, like they were afraid of some of the shelling attacks, but it's undermanned by competent people. Now, Russia has occupied that plant, and they are forced with bringing in 3,100 people from Russian power plants just to keep it to the point where it's going to function without melting down. Back to my point about the soldiers, Russia has lost 193,000 ground troops so far. Okay, that's 4 times what we lost in Vietnam over many more years. So this is my takeaways from that. The other thing is that the Russian offensive has basically stalled due to lack of interest. And the Ukrainian offensive is stalled because of mud season now. But there's also a theory that Ukraine is actually waiting for some training on all the special weapons that they got. Segue back to your point from the United States and other countries. Because remember, when they first promised this stuff, the Patriot missiles and the tanks, there's some logistical issues to get this stuff there. It's just now arriving. But the good thing is that some of these cruise missiles are actually capable of reaching some of the areas they're being attacked from, which is the Crimea. So we went for a circle on that one, didn't we?
We absolutely did. Well,
so I know I try to jam a lot in there, but I think I'm outraged by the lack of outrage people have for what's going on in that country. Russia should be completely banned from everything. It's an impotent response to ban them from the Olympics and all that 1972 Munich bullshit, okay? No, we need to actually take a stand against them because their goal is siding with China and Saudi Arabia and making sure that we don't exist anymore. That's all there is
Absolutely.
to it.
But here's the thing: we've laid many sanctions on Putin. Okay, but I watched this show that had satellite imagery. You know how he's right now restricted from exporting oil.
Yeah.
But what he does, and they showed it on these satellite things, he'll put it on a different type of ship. Then that ship will meet the tanker way out in the ocean and transfer it, and then go sell it that way. It's a country, so the odds of you stopping are ridiculous.
And they're going to find a way. They always do.
Well,
North Korea's been doing it for years.
It's a country. It's going to find a way. They got resources beyond our understanding. But then we look. You made some comments on the Russian military. I don't know if it's quite the way you're saying, because honestly, the Ukrainian war to me, I feel, is kind of like, look over here at the shiny object. That Putin's up to something with Z in China, and this is a distraction. I truly believe that. Okay, and I had a discussion with someone that I'll wait for another podcast we'll talk about.
So basically his heart's not in it. What you're saying?
It's more than that. It's part of that, okay. But then. What you got to understand also is, I don't know if you paid attention to that Navy soldier down the Cape in Massachusetts that got arrested with the top secret info. Well, when he released that, he stated that the media is lying to us about the war, that Russia's actually kicking the crap out of Ukraine. So, I mean,
I'd love to talk about that, because I don't know anything about that. I would love to hear about that more. Another subject
we can do maybe tomorrow on the cast, but I'm just telling you, this is the things that are going on. We're lied to by the media. Our whole gist of this podcast today is the media hypocrisy and the way they spin everything. Anyway,
that's not fair. Last week was too.
Understandable. But then it's
wag the dog, baby. Wag the dog.
Wag it like crazy. But that Patriot missile system that we gave them, they tried to take it out the other day and failed too. So that's a good thing. I'm glad we gave that to them for a little bit of safety. But as far as this war, you know how I feel about it. I like hearing what you have, and it's going to be going on. So we'll be talking about this more and more and more. So we'll go to this next topic, which this is a good one too. This is the We Are Marshall podcast. Hit like, share, and subscribe. Go check out our sponsor at www.mateconnector.com. The next one's the debt ceiling. This is really big in the news right now, saying that we're going to default on our debt around early June or something. So basically, I've just got something to go on from what I just saw our press secretary do to us all in a press conference about the debt ceiling, trying to lecture us as American people and lecture everybody about the debt ceiling. So Americans are told to be responsible for their finances. Their credit can get hit, but what about the government? Okay? Press secretary tried to lecture the press and American people about paying bills. It's all right.
That's beautiful. Oh.
Yeah. And about she's trying to lecture us about paying our bills. It's all good that we must pay our bills, and so shouldn't our government. But when the government continues to raise spending, when we do not have the tax revenue inflow to cover this, then what are we doing? Any one of us that did this in our household would be bankrupt. So why can the government do this, and it affects us? When the government does all this, when they increase spending, when they increase taxes, it affects us. But if you increase the spending in your house bill, you're not affecting me. You're only affecting you and your household.
Right.
If we spend more than we have, it affects our household, not the whole country. We are being fleeced of our taxpayer money by these people, okay? She sits up there all high and mighty, trying to tell us how we got to pay our debts. Yeah, you do, but you don't continue to increase spending when we don't have the money. If anything, right now, like McCarthy requested when he would negotiate about the debt ceiling, he wanted federal spending cut. What is the problem with cutting federal spending? We're obviously spending too much, so we need to balance the budget and stop spending. Isn't that just common sense, Bill?
Well, it is, but when you consider the fact that the government operates on deficit spending, which is the most ludicrous thing I've ever heard in my entire life, that sounds like my credit card history.
Exactly.
And then the fact that every program and every department's budget, if they don't use it, then they don't get the same amount the following year. That's a government protocol. means that everything that's going to happen is going to be just, not only is it excessive, but on top of that, it's usually just wasted. It's mind-boggling. So I don't even want to touch how condescending Miss Kareem with the horrible eyeshadow. She is just the dumbest of the dumb, and I don't know. I'm sorry. A shaved monkey could do a better job up there sometimes. And she's just so condescending. It's mind-boggling. Is that the word we're looking for?
Yeah, I mean, bottom line is she's probably a nice lady. It's good.
No, that's not a question.
To see a black. This is my opinion. She's probably a nice lady, a black lesbian, made some accomplishment. Good for her. But the point being, sure, she's probably the worst press secretary we've seen. She lies all the time. It is absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah. Her nose grows about 7-8 inches every press conference. Yeah, but so this debt ceiling, this debt ceiling, this happened before in 2011. We cut a deal with the stock market and we got by it. Okay. This is not 2011. We don't have a very clear majority. We have a very thin majority in the House right now. And no one's talking about compromise. So nobody's working for a deal. And our economy is much more fragile than it was 2011 right now. I think last time we had a podcast, we talked about how we're in a recession. The only one that doesn't want to admit it is the government. Right? We are definitely in a recession. And with interest rates the way they are, if this happens, you're looking at 8.3% mortgage rates for prime. Okay, that's unbelievable. Not to mention the fact they just slap a surtax on all homeowners so they can supplement people with bad credit, 620 or above. You heard about that, I'm sure.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. Yeah. That one. Yeah.
But the fact is that this is about confidence. Okay. You heard about how China, Russia, and Saudi Arabia got together and talked about making the yen the predominant currency. People aren't talking about that. The U.S. dollar cannot stop being the benchmark of the world economy. It can't. Nope. If you start talking about defaulting on a debt ceiling and having a credit default of this scale, European markets, European leaders, everything that we are trying to instill confidence in is going to collapse. There's so much more ripple effect that's going to go on for just decades after this happens. And all it is political bullet points. It's all people pandering and saying, oh, it's your fault. No, it's your fault. And no, it's your fault. And no one is doing anything about it. If you had two kids in front of you arguing like that, you just say, well, you both just shut up and try to find something you agree on. Please. Exactly. And I've done that.
They don't really want to solve these issues. These issues they need to stay in power.
But the Republicans gain from this? I mean, is it worth it? Again, with the Sun Tzu, ruling over the ashes, are the Republicans really so anti-democrat that they let this happen? Because it's going to affect them too.
Yeah, but let's be realistic, Bill. Do you really think it's going to happen? It's not going to happen. They will sign. They will raise the debt ceiling. Hopefully, they come to some compromises. It's just let's play games, and that's all that.
Yeah, but I don't want them to find a compromise in some way. I want them to stop continuously raising the debt ceiling.
Well, I want them to start a compromise to, at worst, start lower government spending.
You have to have something punitive. Somebody has to be faced with some kind of a consequence, some kind of course of action that they have to follow. Everybody's tired of rampant spending. You just mentioned it, $100 billion unlimited budget. Well, the CIA, the State Department, the Department of Defense, the NSA, all these agencies, they have an unlimited budget too. That's why you have $47 toilet seats. Okay.
How's this? I'll throw you a statistic that I did in one of my podcasts before. Do you know that our U.S. military is the only government agency that fails an audit every single year? And right now, to the tune of the last 5 years, Bill, there is $9 trillion missing. Trillion.
Well, our deficit now is what, $71 trillion?
something like that. And our GDP for the year is 15 trillion. So here we have 9 trillion that just disappeared, which could pay for half of the whole country's GDP. It's unbelievable.
So why don't we want to get spending under control then? Like, come on.
Yeah, again, it comes down to accountability. You're right. It's just not happening. But let's move on to this next one that you brought up here. This is the We Are Marshall podcast. Hit like, share, and smash that subscribe button so we can continue to grow content for you. And go check out our sponsor, MateConnector.com, an inexpensive dating site for everybody out there. The next subject, Bill, you want to discuss is Title 42 ending. Now, this is a real big subject that's kind of getting brushed under the rug as it happened. The news is kind of getting quiet on it. People are being let in just to roam the streets over the border and sleep on the streets. They're like, we don't have anywhere to put them, so just let them go on the street.
Yeah.
But they're letting them go into the street with no court date or anything. Or, like we discussed, an anklet, some tracking device. What happens when these people that come in and they're sleeping on the street get frustrated? Or want to just take what they want because they feel like they're going to starve or die or whatever. They're in a country that's foreign to them. Okay? This is a formula for catastrophe. That's all I can say about this right now. Go ahead.
Well, what's different about yesterday? What's different about a week before, a month ago? When was the border not a catastrophe?
Yep.
You have 500,000, 500,000 legal crossings a day in this country, okay?
Yep.
Now, I wish I wrote them down. I saw the numbers earlier about the average amount of people, but it's over 1 million people a day are now entering this country on all of our borders, okay?
We can't do that.
And as you famously said, that we know of.
Yes.
All right?
Exactly.
That we know of. This is a catastrophe already made, okay? I don't understand how Mayorkas, can you imagine this guy is actually in charge of the Homeland Security? Like, never mind the border. All issues of the safety of Americans are entrusted in this, God, knucklehead, this hack. It's mind-blowing to me. But having said that, he's pointing fingers. Oh, the border's not open. It never has been. It's been closed for 7 months. I'm sorry. We have eyes. If that border's not open, I hate to see what it looks like when it is, all right? Because it looks to me like they're crossing it with living room sets and big screen TVs on their backs, okay? And they all have iPhones. That cracks me up. All these indigent, desperate souls fleeing gangs and political persecution are all playing with their iPhones, playing Candy Crush while they're waiting to get into the gate, okay? And by the way, Fox has not shied away. And no, people, I don't only watch Fox, but Fox has been live streaming all day from the border. And the governor, the mayor of Yuma is asking Biden for help, basically saying, how are you allowing this to happen? But here's my only real huge point about this, because it's not much different than the last time we talked about the border. It's just a joke. Well, they had a death. They just admitted to it. A child died the other day. Right now, judge shopping. A judge actually did order that the administration cannot release. And the way they described it is foils admin's plan. And you know what? It actually was actually released by a government agency today that the actual plan that Joe word salad Biden up there right now had was to let everybody in and release them into the country.
Yeah. Yep.
How is that a plan?
Well, because that's a plan because the Democrats want more voters. They believe that these Hispanics, minorities that they're bringing in, all these people are going to eventually be voters for them. But go ahead, keep finishing your thought.
Well, no, the thing is now, so they're saying, no, they have to have a confirmed court date. I already told you about how the courts are. The immigration courts are beyond backlogged. It's like trying to pump 1 million gallons of water through the funnel you fill your oil reserve with in your car. Okay, it is just 3-4 years down the road, if at all. So there's no real plan here. And okay, let's talk about crime. So people, They're not going to care about laws when they haven't eaten in 3 weeks. You're right. They're going to start knocking the window shops,
Exactly.
windows store windows open and taking what they need. And then you have the law and order issue, and then you have the cities who welcome this. The mayor of New York today said, "We got 1 million people expected to come in every day. Help, help." You're the city that said we welcome all illegal immigrants.
Yep.
Well, what about the people of New York?
Sanctuary city. Yep.
How is the people of New York going to accommodate 1 million people a day for a foreseeable future? And how is this not going to end up badly for absolutely everybody? Not to mention the fact that the average estimate of what benefits people are getting is over $3,000 a month, and it's more than veterans get and retirees get.
I agree. I think the veterans are treated worse than illegal immigrants in this country. I'm a veteran. You know how I feel about that.
Absolutely.
But
I'm horrified.
We got 2 more stories. One's going to be my story to end good, and I did want to definitely include this next one that you brought up. I just want to reiterate, this is the We Are Marshall podcast. That's Bill McIntyre. I'm Stephen Marshall. Hit that like, share, and subscribe, and go check out our large sponsor, MateConnector.com. The next one's Matt Ariza. All right, this is big. We're both huge football fans. I mean, we're Patriots fans, but I still respect Buffalo. Great team. They
I love Buffalo now. I love Buffalo. Yeah,
I like a lot of players on that team. But
Josh is the man.
Yep, Matt Ariza is an ex-Buffalo's Bills punter, and he was accused in a civil suit of participating in a gang rape. He was not even present at this gang rape. Lost his job, still not reinstated, and who knows, he may lose his career over something he did not do. Go ahead, Bill.
Well, he did lose his career. Wasn't he only drafted?
My hope is that he gets back.
Wasn't he only drafted on the team for a few months when they found out about this, kicked him off?
Correct. Yep.
Okay, if I'm making sure I have the right story here. Yeah. Well, you know what I'm going to say, right? I mean, You know what I'm going to say. Once you're accused, man, it doesn't matter. You don't see anybody lining up and say, "Hey, we're sorry, we're going to give you your job back." Nope, they're going to move on from the whole thing. And the guy's been accused. There's never a process in which someone is told, "Oh, we're going to do everything you can to get on the front page of every newspaper in the country, make sure everybody knows that you didn't do what you were accused of doing." And it's like trying to put the shit back on the horse.
Yep,
again,
no problem breaking you down. Yep, they have no problem breaking you down, but they won't fix you back up after they broke you incorrectly.
And here's the thing: what about due process? No, they ran from the publicity of it. They didn't say. What they should have said was, "You know what? It's an allegation. Let's see where this goes before we actually end this guy's career." Yeah, but yet, all these famous football players throughout the years who have committed spousal abuse and all kinds of horrible acts and crimes and all that, they get to keep playing.
Deshaun Watson, 28 sexual assault accusations, got a guaranteed contract of $250 million. That's all I can say about that.
Do you need to say more?
Yep, hypocrisy once again. But
it's the dollar. The dollar. I mean,
the mighty dollar always speaks. Absolutely, we are in this capitalist society, which I do love, but it does have its bad parts too.
It does.
But I just want to jump in. We had some good topics, Bill. I want to jump in and talk about this. A good story that I find. We talk about climate change and everybody's worried about that. And then we just talked about an athlete. So here we got climate change and an ex-athlete kind of story going on. So it segues nicely. This is the We Are Marshall podcast. Hit like, share, and subscribe. And this one is about Rick Fox. If no one knows who Rick Fox is, I know Rick Fox. He played for the Boston Celtics, played for the Los Angeles Lakers. I believe he might have played elsewhere. He's been in some movies. Pretty famous guy when he was around here in Boston area. But if someone asked you what Rick Fox was famous for, you would say the 3 NBA championships he won with the Lakers. But the next generation might know him instead as the face of sustainable concrete. Believing that tropical storms are becoming more intense due to carbon content in the atmosphere, Fox went all in and became the co-founder and CEO of a company called Partana, which manufactures concrete that absorbs more carbon from the air than it contributes during manufacturing. Instead of using Portland cement, which is a major source of carbon emissions, they use a special mixture of natural and recycled ingredients that's cured at ambient temperature rather than the high temps that make concrete and cement responsible for the largest share of the manufacturing emissions pie chart. So he's basically created something, as it just said, to tack one of the largest parts of the emissions pie chart. That's fantastic. The binder components consume CO2, carbon dioxide, as they cure, which means they actually remove carbon from the atmosphere. They use a brine activator that's found in natural polysans, which helps avoid using the energy-intensive clinkering process. So now we have a concrete that not only in the manufacturing process eradicates a large amount of the carbon dioxide put into the air, which is the major issue that we're having in climate change, it now actually sucks it out of the air. So we've talked about this a little bit before, Bill, that we are doing a bunch of things that the climate change people won't tout. They won't hold up and say, hey, we are doing the right things. We are trying to. These are good advancements, and I'm all for them. But again, we talked about it the other day, not at the expense of us being, one of the lower exporting of oil. But how do you feel about Rick Fox doing an endeavor like this now?
I don't know where we got the inspiration for that, but it's brilliant, and I've never occurred to me. Not that I would, known for my scientific know-how, but that is just such a novel way to think, because everything is about reduce, reduce, reduce. So what about actually building something like it's like building earthquake-proof houses as opposed to rebuilding houses all the time? It's like it's being proactive. It's being smart. The road to my house is Route 153 in New Hampshire. Okay, there's a 5-mile stretch of it that was made with a combination of recycled tires and asphalt. Okay. That road has never been repaired since they built it because they had the smart to try something new. Every other section of road around here has been broken, frost heaves, everything else every winter. They've never touched that road because someone had the thoughts of, hey, why don't we build something that might actually last? This is brilliant. This is it flies in the face of just slashing what we know, and it's talking about doing something new. There's nothing bad about this story. I would imagine it's probably pretty prohibitively expensive to create.
Well, they didn't get into the expenditure as of yet, but Rick Fox did get his house he's from the Bahamas, and there was a storm down there that wrecked his house, and one of his agents or people told him, hey, go check this company out. He knew the CEO of that company, and that's how he got to be with them. But here's something you did touch on, that road. That's fascinating to me, the road you're telling me about, because there's also something I've been reading a lot about is nanotechnology. And just to lay this out, maybe this is something I can look up down the future. But if people don't know what nanotechnology is, they are in the process of being able to take nanotechnology and say, build a bridge with it, Bill, right? With the nanotechnology built in the bridge, and say the bridge has a crack. The bridge will repair itself. So these are the fascinating things that we're having. These are the type of segments I'll bring in. But anyway, we're at the end of the podcast. I love talking to you again, Bill. I look forward. We're going to be doing another one tomorrow. Yeah, this is fan. This is what we've done for years. Now we're going to bring it to everybody else, what we talked about. And I love it.
Lucky you.
Just want to let you all know once again, this is the We Are Marshall podcast. I'm Stephen Marshall. This is my buddy Bill McIntyre. Hit like, share, and smash that subscribe button so we can continue bringing this content. And we're going to start building a members-only section where Bill and I just have our conversations about one or two subjects where we get in-depth at some point. So appreciate all your time, guys. Thank you for letting Bill and I come out here and talk to you, and we look forward to doing it again. Thank you very much.
Great stuff. Thank you.
Thank you.